Over the past month or so, my family's been touring a couple of different college campuses for Ronnie. Ronnie's finishing up his time at ICC and getting ready to switch over to a 4-year school. And really, we've narrowed it down to kind of, local schools. And he'll be choosing pretty soon between Eureka College and Bradley University. Both schools have kind of their pluses and minuses. If he goes to Bradley, he'll have a university behind his name, he'll have better internship opportunities, he'll be in bigger, better facilities, right? But if he goes to Eureka, there's an education that's more tailored to his interests. He'll have smaller class sizes, be closer to his professors. Now, Ronnie knows which way he's leaning between those two schools, but it's still a tough decision, right? I mean, it's like, I could see either one of these working out kind of a thing. He met with faculty in both communications departments, and he really liked both of them. And for me personally, I'd be happy with either decision. But it's kind of tough. Now, some decisions are a little bit easier than other decisions to make, or at least they should be, right? And I'm going to see, just out of curiosity, we're going to do a little bit of voting here to see if you guys know how to make good decisions. So here's the first question. Tater tots or French fries? Raise your hand if you're tater tots. How about French fries? Okay, so people just liked French fries. First service was very overwhelming in this. I think it was a little bit swayed toward French fries, but, I always got to go tater tots, man. World's most perfect food. Agreed. Thank you. Breakfast, lunch, casserole, whatever, right? Okay, here's the next one. This is, of course, always the big conversation. This is always a comparison. Pepsi or Coke? Pepsi people, raise your hand. Okay, Coke. Okay. First service was actually very balanced. Second service is clearly more Coke. All right, now, actually, Pepsi wins about 60% of taste tests, but people still love Coke anyway because we're brand loyal. Because we're sheep. No, I don't. Actually, I really don't have an interest. I don't really care. Does anybody remember the Pepsi challenge in the 80s? Anybody remember that? A couple of us, right? And it was like they totally just botched that. It was like you had the best marketing tool ever and you missed it. Anyway, next question. M&M's or Reese's? Wait, before you vote though, I have a bone to pick with you Reese's people. Okay? When you go to McDonald's, it's not McDonald's. When you eat Lay's, it's not Lay-E's. When you eat Raisin Bran, it's from Kellogg's, not Kellogg-E's. Right? We don't add extra words in there or extra sounds. It's possessive. The person who invented the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup was this guy, H.B. Reese.
I can't see him.
This guy. That guy right there. H.B. Reese. It's possessive. So you're eating a peanut butter cup. Which one? The one made by Reese. Oh, so these are Reese's Peanut Butter Cups? Not Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I have another bone to pick with you, though. Next slide. Those are Reese's Pieces. Those are Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. You ever order a shake and they're like, oh, so you want like a Reese's Pieces shake? No. I want Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. They're not the same thing, not even close. All right? Anyway, I digress. Would you rather have Reese's or M&M's? Reese's, go.
Yeah.
Thank you. M&M's? Wow, we make a lot of bad decisions in this service. Okay, all right. How about this one? Mustard or ketchup on your hot dog? All right, raise your hand if you're mustard. Raise your hand if you're ketchup. Okay, we are in the Midwest. You can tell. So check this out. This was actually a debate after our park launch day, right? Whether or not you should do ketchup or mustard. And it turns out the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, that's a real thing, they say that it is unacceptable to put ketchup on a hot dog unless you're a child. I'm like, then I put ketchup on my hot dog to feel younger then. I don't really care, right? Okay, here's one. Would you rather have, if you had a superpower, would you choose to fly or be invisible? All right, so fly. How about invisible? Yeah. Invisibility, that's a degenerate superpower right there. Can't choose that one. There's nothing good to do with that power other than things you probably shouldn't be doing, right? Sneaking into places you shouldn't be. Come on now. All right. I'm just saying. You picked it. All right, I'm just teasing, and I'm not going to judge you based on your superpower decision. Okay, one last one. Dogs or cats? Who's a dog person? Cat people. Cats are so arrogant, right? They're just so snooty. I just can't even, all right? Yeah, intelligent, that's one word for it. Snooty, intelligent, they're the same thing. Okay, so here's the thing. Like I said, some choices should be easy. I thought, this group was a little bit more what I expected versus the last group. The last group was like split almost down the middle on everything. And you guys picked some of the ones that I thought would be like the more, common decisions, right? But see, here's the thing is like there are some things that should be an easy choice, but some things that even if they look like an easy choice aren't because human beings are complicated. Right? We don't always choose what would be obvious, okay? And so today we're going to learn all about another choice that all of us have to make as human beings, okay? This choice should also be easy, but for so many of us it is often not, okay? So if you're following along with your YouVersion Bible app this morning, today's message is called, of course, Are You Going to Be My Girl? Are You Going to Be My Girl? We're in Proverbs 8 for a little bit, and then we're going to bounce over to Proverbs 9, which is the chunk of what we're looking at today. So before we hop in, I want to give you just a couple of reminders. First, I want to remind you that wisdom is more than just a fortune cookie, okay? I don't want us to forget that. That is the theme of what we're talking about here, is that fortune cookies, they give you a little bit of advice, they tell you your future, whatever. But we're talking about much more than that, okay? There's a lot more depth when we look into the Proverbs, okay? Remember, Proverbs is depicted as a Lady Wisdom. All right, now Lady Wisdom is available everywhere to anyone. She was with God when he created everything, which means that wisdom is an attribute of God that supersedes creation, right? Sometimes we think wisdom changes with culture, but it doesn't. The way we apply wisdom to different cultures may change, but culture doesn't change wisdom. Wisdom is always what it is, okay? And wisdom is a combination of godly knowledge, godly application, and godly skill, okay? Or it's the word kokma in Hebrew. Okay, so we're going to start off here with Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 12 because we went around it last week. So we're going to go ahead and hop into Proverbs 8. We're still covering the basics of wisdom here this morning, and wisdom is going to tell us all about herself. So let's see what Lady Wisdom has to say. Proverbs 8:12. She says, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance and the way of evil. And perverted speech I hate. I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight. I have strength. By me, kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By me, princes rule, and nobles, all who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me and filling their treasuries. So a person who has wisdom has certain behavior, right? And we can see it in this passage here, that she's really saying that she has self-control and discretion, okay? And this quiet gentleness is very important, and we'll see that come up as we go a little bit. And if you're that type of person, what are the things you think you might not like very much? Probably the same things that Lady Wisdom doesn't like, right? Pride, arrogance, perverted speech. And so a wise person chooses to put those things away. And she goes on to say that wisdom is good for kings and princes and rulers and anyone who governs justly, not crookedly, but justly. Even the most powerful people in the world benefit from wisdom. So the fact that you might be the richest, most powerful, most famous person in the world doesn't mean that wisdom is not for you. Wisdom would still be good for you no matter who you are. So if you grab your Connect card on the way in and you're going to fill in your blanks, here is your first one. You cannot sidestep the need for wisdom. You cannot sidestep the need for wisdom. The fact that you have fame or wealth or anything like that doesn't place you above wisdom. You may go, I don't need wisdom, I'm rich. I don't need wisdom, I'm famous. But that's really not true. So Tosh and I on Netflix recently, we've been watching Beckham. Anybody watch Beckham? It's a documentary on David Beckham. Nobody's watching it? Okay, one person. Okay, here we go. I'll fill you guys in a little bit on the details. If you don't know who David Beckham is, he's a soccer star. He was married to a Spice Girl. He made millions upon millions of dollars. But there was a match where he was playing back in the 90s, and there was a player that came up behind him and pushed him down onto the turf, okay? And in response, he lifted his leg up a little bit, just to kind of go back after the guy. The guy pushed him down, and he stuck his leg up at him, okay? And of course, because this is soccer, the guy that had the leg stuck up at him went flying off the field, right, and, rolling and grabbing his leg, right, like something serious happened. And as a result, he got a red card. Now, if you don't watch soccer, you don't know what a red card is. A red card means that, number one, you are out of the game, right? You now have to exit the game. But what's worse than that is the team can't replace you, okay? So you have to play a man down for the rest of the match. So that's a big deal to get a red card for sticking your leg up. I mean, I grew up playing hockey, and it was like, that's just normal. That's just what you do. Like, there is no, penalty for that, not to mention being kicked out of the game and playing a man down the rest of the time. But that's what happened to David Beckham. He got kicked out of the match. He had to watch from the sideline. So as the game went on, they lost the match because they were tied. They went on into extra time, and then they went to penalty kicks, and the game was decided in penalty kicks. Now, it's important to realize that this was a World Cup match. Beckham was representing the country of England in a tie game against a fierce rival. They were playing against Argentina. And losing this game knocked them out of contention, and the whole country of England hated David Beckham after that, right? So what they did was he actually started receiving bullets in the mail. They hanged a Beckham dummy outside of a London pub, and even the newspaper printed David Beckham's face on a dartboard so you could hang it up and throw darts on it. Now, that's pretty rough, right? Why did that happen to David Beckham? Because he made a decision on the turf that was unwise, right? He made a stupid move. He retaliated against a guy when he shouldn't have, and it cost his team the game and the competition. That's why the Daily Mirror headline the next day read, 10 heroic lions, 1 stupid boy. They blamed him for everything. And it was really hard on him and his family after that. So see, church, wisdom matters no matter who you are. Whatever you have, if you make unwise decisions, they can still affect you negatively, okay? And the last part of that passage explains why that is. Here it says wisdom leads to riches and wealth. But that passage also says that the best return is beyond any gold or any silver you could hope to lay your hands on. Right? Wisdom offers you more than just stuff. There's a bigger return. And so you might be sitting there thinking, great, wisdom's a good idea then. I should pursue wisdom. This is an easy choice, right? Well, let's flip over to chapter 9, and we're going to see that it's not quite as easy as you might think, all right? Now, we're going to see 3 things from one woman in this passage, all right? We're going to take a look at Lady Wisdom, and we are going to see her preparation, her plea, and her promise, okay? Then we're going to take a look at another woman, and we're going to see her preparation and plea and promise, okay? So let's start with Lady Wisdom first, her preparation. We'll learn about that in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 1. It says this, Wisdom has built her house, she has hewn her 7 pillars, she has slaughtered her beasts, and she has mixed her wine, she has also set her table. So this is wisdom's preparation. She's preparing something, right? Her house is large. It necessitates 7 pillars. And 7 in the Bible represents the number of perfection or a number of completion, right? So she has a well-built, solid, completed home, all right? And interestingly enough, in the book of James, we see 7 pillars of wisdom there as well. In James 3:17, it says, But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. 7 things that we build ourselves up on as far as wisdom goes. We go after peace and gentleness and reason and mercy and good actions and fairness and sincerity, right? Those are the things that complete in us a good foundation for good godly living, okay? But if we look back at Lady Wisdom, she's preparing a table in her home. She has worked and she has put care into her situation. She doesn't just, throw out a bowl of cereal or microwave a meal and put it out, right? Not that that's a bad thing to do sometimes, but, she puts effort into things. She has a bountiful return because of her efforts. So here's what we learn about Lady Wisdom's provision, okay? Here's your first fill in the blank this morning. Wisdom works hard at provision. Wisdom works hard at provision. When I was a kid, there was a Porky Pig cartoon that I watched called Porky's Bear Facts. Anybody remember that cartoon? I'm like way older than I even should be. I mean, that was made in I think it was like 1941 this one came out. I watched it on VHS. So it was a great cartoon, though, because what happens is it starts off with Porky Pig, and he's working on his farm, okay? And he's just, happy pig, plowing, doing his thing. And he sings a song. Better work while you can, be a diligent man. Yes, it's better to earn your keep. Do not shirk, do your work. And as ye sow, so shall ye reap. Okay? That's Porky's song. But just across the way from where Porky is working hard, there's a bear. And he's lazy, and he's sitting on his porch with his guitar, and his dog is kind of laying down, and his song is like, working can wait, this is paradise, having no work to do, and taking it easy too, working can wait. Working can wait. And then the seasons start to change from summer to fall to winter, And the bear ends up in his house with his dog freezing, and they're dreaming of food. Oh, just imagine a juicy steak with, he goes off on this list, and he's like, man, am I hungry? And he starts desperately going through his house and digging through the cans, and actually he ends up picking up these cans and shaking them in his ear, and they're all empty, and then he finally finds one, ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding, and there's one bean inside of this can. And he's like, yes, we're saved. And so he sits down at his table, and he and his dog decide they're going to say grace to be thankful for this. And so they start saying grace, and all of a sudden this mouse shoots out from the wall, jumps up there, grabs the bean, and runs down and eats the whole thing right then and there, and he's obviously very satisfied, and the bear starts to lose it. He starts laughing and crying and laughing and crying, and then the dog turns to the camera and says, oh man, he's really losing it. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to eat me. And then all of a sudden the bear shows up with his fork and knife, looking at his dog, and starts following his dog, and the dog starts pleading with him and walking backwards and walks out the door and down the street and over to Porky's house, and they pass by the door, and then they back up and look in the door, and they see Porky's feast. Wow, he has so much stuff in there. And so they say, he knocks on the door and says, oh, excuse me, were you having dinner? And Porky goes, you made your bed now, or you buttered your bread, now sleep in it. Slams the door in his face. And then he looks up to the left, and there's a little sign that says, love thy neighbor. And Porky reopens the door and he says, would you guys like to come in? I have plenty. Before he even finishes his sentence, the bear and the dog are bursting through the house. They go to the table and they start eating like maniacs, eating everything in sight. And at the end of the meal, obviously the bear is stuffed, and he says, yeah, I certainly learned my lesson, Porky. You won't find me cold and hungry next winter. And he looks out the window, and a bird is starting to chirp. And he says, it's spring! And he runs home, and he runs back to his porch, and he sits in his chair, and he grabs the guitar, and his dog comes in and lays down, and he starts singing, working can wait, this is paradise. He goes right back to his old ways. In that story, the lesson is clear, right? Hard work and preparation pays off, but laziness and lounging around and not investing in anything doesn't pay off. So wisdom works hard at provision. So let's take a look at wisdom's plea then. Okay, let's see what she has to say. Let's look at Proverbs 9:3. It says, she has sent out her young women to call from the highest places in the town. They say, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. To him who lacks sense, she says, come and eat of my bread and drink of the wine that I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live and walk in the way of insight. So we see here that wisdom wants to be heard, right? She's sending her message out. She gets her maidens and sends them out, which is interesting because isn't that how Jesus shares his message too? He takes his people and sends them out. Well, that's what wisdom does as well, going out, sharing wisdom. And so they're crying from the highest places, the hills, the towers, the rooftops. And basically they're saying, if you don't know where to go or what to do, come here. Come learn from the wisdom of the Lord, right? And wisdom is essentially saying, you don't have to stay the way you are. I can help you. Look, I have a pre-made feast. You can see the fruits of wisdom, so come to me. So this is what Lady Wisdom's plea is, your next fill in the blank. Wisdom wants to help the willing. Wisdom wants to help the willing. She puts herself out there and makes herself available. However, she has a line. She will not force herself on anyone, right? Because here's what happens if you force yourself on somebody who doesn't want to be wise. Proverbs 9:7. Whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will still be wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. So wisdom says, stay away from the scoffers, right? For those who will listen and want to learn from wisdom, wisdom will generously give all she has. But for a scoffer, a person who just mocks wisdom, she doesn't even waste her time. She says it's fruitless to go after people that don't want to be wise because they're just going to get mad and injure you. We've all had those people in our lives, right? Who just can't seem to make the right decision because they don't want to. Well, in those situations, it's important to remember that we should love our neighbor, right? Like Porky Pig did. We should love our neighbor. But you can't do everything for them, right? If they refuse wisdom or even scoff at you for trying to be wise, you can put yourself in a position where you're available to them when they're ready without letting them victimize you, right? And if you think about it, that's how God works with us as well. He begins with incredible patience, but there is a line. We learned this back in our Romans series, Romans chapter 2, verse 4. It says, "Or do you presume on the riches of his kindness and forbearance and patience, not knowing that God's kindness is meant to lead you to repentance?" See, God, when he allows us to continue going instead of striking us dead where we stand, he's patient, he's willing, he's waiting for us and giving us an opportunity to repent and go to him, to respond to him. He gives us time because he's patient. But that only lasts until our death. Once our life is over, God hands us over to the choices that we've made. If we are unwilling to repent and turn to him, God won't force us. He gives us the choice. And so that brings us then to wisdom's promise, right? We've seen her provision and her plea. So what does she promise with her plea? Let's turn to Proverbs 9:10. She says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it." So she begins with our part, right? She says, if you want to be wise, start here. And where do we start? The fear of the Lord. We talked about that last week. Remember David Guzik's definition of fear? He says it's the proper reverence that the creature owes to the Creator and that the redeemed owes to the Redeemer. But what is that proper reverence? What does it look like when we fear the Lord? Do we just cower in fear because we're afraid of him? No. I think the best way to explain it is a good, healthy relationship between like a parent and a child, right? Where if you're doing wrong, there's a fear, right? Because you understand the power of your parent or whatever. But at the same time, there's a loving relationship there, right? And so that's our relationship with God. We should understand his power and his justice, but we should also recognize his mercy and his grace, okay? And it's interesting that that's where we start if we want to be wise. If we want to be wise people, we start by fearing God. But that isn't something that we just, we don't start it like, okay, I gave my life to Christ, I started, now I'm going to move on from the fear of the Lord. It's not like that. Actually, evangelist Campbell Morgan puts it this way. He said, "We are ever beginning. Every morning we start afresh. Every task we take up is a new start. Every venture in joy or in effort must have its commencement. Then let every beginning be in the fear of Jehovah. That is wisdom, and it leads in the way of wisdom." See, to live a life of wisdom, it does begin with salvation, but it re-begins every morning when we wake up. Every new situation we enter, every new relationship we enter, we have to start with the fear of the Lord. If you begin a new relationship and the fear of the Lord is not the basis of it, you're making a mistake. If you're starting a new job and the fear of the Lord is not the basis of it, you're making a mistake. If you are wise, every new beginning also begins with the fear of the Lord. And if we do that, wisdom promises us some things in return. So here's what Lady Wisdom's promise is, your next fill in the blank. Wisdom wants you to live the best life possible. Wisdom wants you to live the best life possible. You will have personal gain if you are wise. And so wisdom is your personal responsibility. You have to seek it, and you will reap the benefits if you do. Wisdom cannot be done for you. It cannot be forced upon you. You must be the one that seeks the Lord and his wisdom. And when you do, there are a ton of benefits even in this life. And so the question is, should we want to seek wisdom and her benefits? Of course, it's an easy choice, right? Yes, we want to seek wisdom. Yes, we want to know God. It's a no-brainer. Sorta. Because we don't always make that choice. Okay, so Proverbs shift gears here, and now we're going to start talking about another woman. So we've been talking about Lady Wisdom up until this point. Now we're going to talk about a different lady. We're going to talk about Lady Folly now, or Lady Foolishness. Okay? And there are no shortage of people in this world that choose to follow Lady Folly instead of Lady Wisdom, okay? So, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at her preparation and her plea and her promise as well. So, what is the preparation that Lady Folly offers? Let's look at verse 13 and we'll be introduced to her. Here we go. Proverbs 9:13. "The woman Folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house," and then we're going to stop there. So this portrait of Lady Folly is very interesting to me, okay? Or Lady Foolishness. She's loud, so that word there literally means like boisterous or clamorous or brazen, okay? She's very loud. Think of like a drunk girl at a party, screaming at people and bringing all sorts of drama and attention to herself. That's what Lady Folly looks like, okay? And that word there where it says that she's seductive, that's a tough translation because that word is like multifaceted, okay? It's the Hebrew word pethayuth, all right? Now that word means simple, like stupid, okay? Like Lady Folly is stupid. But it comes from the word pethi, which actually means more like silly, or playfully seductive, or naive, or easily swayed. So if we think about it, what this passage is telling us about Lady Folly is that she is a wild, loud, insolent, gullible, ignorant seductress. That's what Lady Folly is. So remember, Lady Wisdom provided that wisdom works hard at provision. That's what we said. So what is Lady Folly's provision? Here we go, your next fill in the blank. Folly requires no effort. You don't have to try to be dumb, okay? There isn't any preparation for her. She just lounges around in her doorway, right? Lady Folly just sits there, okay? Unlike Lady Wisdom, who is up and preparing her home and her feast, right? We're going to see that a little bit more as we go on. If you want to hang out with Lady Folly, it's very easy. Just don't try in your life. That's how you find her. Like the bear in the Porky Pig cartoon. He sat around doing nothing, and then he was cold and hungry. Dumb. Right? Now, yes, Porky shared his stuff with him, but I wonder how things went next winter. As far as I know, there was no sequel made to that, probably because the bear didn't make it. Okay? So, if that's the provision that she has, nothing, what is the plea? Oh, what is the plea? So let's continue by reading all of verse 14 up through the first half of verse 16. Proverbs 9:14 says, she sits at the door of her house, she takes a seat on the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way, whoever is simple, let them turn in here. Now there are lots of similarities that we see between Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly, right? They both go to the high places, they both reach out to the simple, and they both call them into their homes. But the outcome for Lady Folly and Lady Wisdom is very different. Lady Wisdom prepares her house and sends her maids to call out to mankind from the high places. Well, Lady Folly hangs out in her doorway. She goes to the high places, but she just has a seat. Lady Folly calls to the simple, hey, come on in here. But there's something Lady Folly doesn't say that Lady Wisdom says. Lady Wisdom said, leave your simple ways and live and walk in the way of insight. That was Proverbs 9:6. When Lady Wisdom calls out to dumb people, she says, change, be different, be better. And Folly is like, just come in and stay the same. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Just come on in and do nothing. And what was Lady Wisdom's plea? I said, wisdom wants to help the willing. So what is Folly's plea? Well, here's your next fill in the blank. Folly doesn't care about helping anyone. Folly doesn't care about you. Folly doesn't want you to be better. She just wants you to be around. She seems so unattractive, right? When you think about this idea of Lady Folly, she seems like a very unattractive lady. It's obviously a bad idea to follow her. She's super loud, you can't miss her, and yet people just file through her doors every day. Like a bad accident or a tornado or reality TV, you just can't turn your head. And you want to go after Lady Folly. It's so ugly and bad, but you just can't stay away. But there's still one more thing we have to observe about Lady Folly, and that is her promise. Right? We've looked at her provision and her plea. What is her promise? Proverbs 9:16. She says, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. And that right there, church, is why mankind files through her doors. Those fake, cheap promises. Up until this point, it seems like the choice has been simple, right? Lady Wisdom or Lady Folly? Who do you want to choose? You want to choose wisdom or this ugly, lazy, stupid witch of a woman? But then she starts to talk, and it appeals to our flesh. Stolen water is sweet, she says. Why earn your drink honestly when you can just take it? Why do all the hard work to make bread if you can just hide it and eat all you want? So clearly, this is a reference to encouraging us to steal and to lie, right? We also see laziness there and selfishness there, but it actually covers even more ground than that. If we go back to Proverbs chapter 5, that chapter is warning us about adultery. And that passage uses water to represent adultery in Proverbs 5:15. It says, drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well, which means if you don't commit adultery by going to someone else's wife or husband, stay with your own wife or husband, drink water from your own well. And then in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 17, it talks about the bread there. It says, bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth will be full of gravel. Anybody like to eat gravel in here? Probably toothless or at least tooth broken, right? That would be horrible to just eat gravel. And so folly is enticing her audience with quick, cheap rewards. Yeah, she is. And they all pay out nasty dividends when all is said and done. It might work out for you a little bit in the short term, but you're going to regret it later. Yeah, steal from your neighbor and end up in jail. Yeah, sleep with your friend's wife and lose your marriage. Yeah, trick people into a bad deal and lose your job. Right? How many people do we know that make unwise decisions like that every day? Walking right through the front door of old Lady Folly's disheveled home. And we're going to close out by learning what's inside of Lady Folly's house, Proverbs 9:18. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. That is a bummer of a house to walk into. Remember Lady Wisdom's promise? We said wisdom wants you to live the best life possible. So let's look at Lady Folly's promise. Here's your last fill in the blank. Folly looks good, but only delivers death. So as we stand back today, we have to ask ourselves the question, which is the title of the message, right? Are you going to be my girl? But really, that's not even completely the question we want to ask. The real question is, which girl are you going to ask that question to? Are you going to pursue Lady Wisdom, or are you going to pursue Lady Folly? Do you want to go after the lazy woman who lounges around promising easy pleasure, but puts no effort into anything good and delivers your soul to hell? That's option one. Or option two is Lady Wisdom, the friend of God who works hard and does right and promises a better life and a relationship with God who then offers you eternal life. The truth is, church, the choice is yours. Nobody can make that choice for you except you. Are you going to pursue Lady Wisdom and God, or are you going to pursue folly and the world? That's your choice.